welcome to another episode of I Guess I'll Do It with Pet House, a comedy podcast where I talk about the early days and the very first set. And today I have a very special guest because I have the man that got me into all this in the first place. Today I have Jay Oakerson. What's up, dude? What's happening?
What's up, buddy? I know we had to restart this because tech issues. My fault. But
no problem. Luckily, we were only 42 seconds in, so it wasn't disastrous.
But I was saying, I remember the first time I met you, and we said it was a small. So it was the one like in a well-lit room, kind of upstairs.
Yes, it was a smaller room. It was at Temple University, the alcove at Mitten Hall. It's a Temple Owl, so it's the alcove in Mitten Hall. And it was you, Beefy Funny, and I am blanking on the two other comics.
I don't remember. I know Dorian Noel came there with me.
Holy shit. And, that's one of them. That was Dorian. Yep.
But why Dorian was there is I can't remember. The hosts is the name I can't remember. And it was like a one word, like furious or something like that, or something finesse. I forget. Whatever it was, though. I should remember his name because I've told this story 1,000 times. It still makes me laugh. If you recall, Dorian Noel just came. He wasn't necessarily supposed to be on the show. He just came with me. Mm-hmm. And then they said they would put him on. So that guy, that host came over, young dude, and he was like, he's like, all right, what's your name? And I'm going to bring you up next. And he goes, Dorian Noel. I've been on Comic View, I think was his thing. And the guy was like, cool, okay. And then the host went back on stage and did classic Black Comedy Room host. He did like 15 minutes and completely forgot Dorian's name. And when he brought, this is my favorite intro. This is my favorite intro of all time. Because he goes, "Are your next comic coming to the stage? This guy's been on BET's Comic View, HBO Def Comedy Jam, something else." And he just keeps going with credits. He goes, "You see this guy on Letterman? You seen him on NBC, ABC, Fox. They just go, it's Comedy Central. Oh, it's special." And when he just realized he's never going to remember the name, he goes, "Clap it up, show your love, and make some noise for him." He just walked off the stage. And I've never not enjoyed that. That story stuck with me always. But yeah, then we went outside, and me and you were bullshitting out there, and you were saying you were thinking about trying it.
Yeah, okay. So to backtrack for 1 second, I don't remember that at all. But now I will. But I mean, I didn't know any better, so I wasn't in tune to something like that. However, if I had seen that now, of course I would retain that. But,
also, the Black Show, there's a strong chance you'll meet a guy named him. So, yeah, I'm him. I'm him.
The
Walker.
odds are,
I'm big him. I'm Lil him.
But yep. So you and I, after the show, I went to the back of the room. There was like a large round table that had like 8 or 10 chairs. It was empty, that table. And I had my comedy notebook with me of like shit I've already wrote down. I was like, "Hey man, you were really funny. I want to start doing this." I had seen Attell, I'd seen Birbiglia, I had seen some live comedy, but now it was coming to campus. So the shows were coming to me on campus, right? So I remember talking to you and I was like, "Hey, where do I go? What do I do?" And you told me to go to the Laugh House and talk to the WID, and I did a week later.
Yeah, like a week later. Yeah, dude.
So this was early October 2004.
What a character to be in your life, too. The WID.
I know, dude. I talked to Todd Glass. He has a future episode coming out. And so WID was the first comic to ever bring me to the stage on my first open mic. And WID was the first comic to bring Todd Glass to the stage on his first open mic.
Really?
Like 30 years apart.
Wow. Man. Wow. WID's been 30 years of hosting open mic. The WID was a bitter guy. He was a bitter guy. He was a bitter guy, though, by the time I stopped like seeing him. He seemed like he was getting pretty bitter.
Yeah. I saw him about 2 months ago, and it was great. It was awesome. It was
really? Where at?
Awesome.
Where was he at 2 months ago?
We did a show out in the Philly suburbs. It was an outdoor thing, and it was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. I set you in the Black Comedy Club, so I was the only white person.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you remember that night, too. So that was the first night. So you gave me your email, and we kept in touch because I was like, I did it. I finally fucking did it. So I felt the need to like keep you in the loop. And then you came to Rascals in Cherry Hill in March. I'll never forget. It was about 5 months later, and then you gave me guest sets the entire weekend. And like, you don't forget that shit, man. Like, I
No, for
remember I was
sure.
5 months into comedy. I'd probably been on stage 15, maybe 20 times. And then you put me up in front of a weekend crowd. And then Chris Clayton started using me at Rascals. Brand
Hell yeah.
fucking new. So,
That's
like,
great, though.
you just never forget that stuff, man. You know?
No, the people who give you like breaks and stuff, for sure. I mean, they're so, and there's so many different like levels of that break. There's kind of like the first, like the allowance to go on stage kind of break, you know what I mean? And then the, like, you can do this, because I don't know how you were when before I started, before someone even suggested I try it. I was always just a huge fan of stand up and all of it. I said I'd say that a lot, but I miss it's the innocence I miss so much in comedy, because I'm not a fan of it anymore at all.
It does lose its luster.
I appreciate the great of it. When it's great, I'm like, I appreciate that so much. But like, just there was a time when if there was stand up comedy on TV, I was watching it. If it was a clean show, a religious show, one, super dirty, it didn't matter. It was just like I was just like their perfect audience. Like, oh, I want to laugh. Like, I want them to make me laugh. So I have no like, there's no cynical thing to it at all, and that's just gone. Like, now it's like I could watch, like if I'm gonna sit and really watch, like, or it goes either way. I could watch like Kurt. Todd Glass is a guy I could always watch. People that I just Attell, obviously, people who I just deem great. But more than that, even what I watch is the worst of the worst. I really like watching the shit.
So what got you into it at a young age then? Were you into it as a kid, or is it something you became more into as you got older, high school, or?
No, from a kid all through high school, I don't know. I just like Eddie Murphy, Delirious and stuff. And then like when I realized you can rent from the video store, they had like tons of specials. And I think I would take them. I don't think I like wrote stuff down, but I think when I would hear funny stuff or jokes, a lot of kids weren't watching stand-up comedy, so I can go like regurgite at school and people would laugh, like just like telling, not like even stealing them, because they were too like, for my age, the jokes would be ridiculous. But, I would go tell them like, here's the Sam Kinison bit, like that I heard, and like tell it to them. And I would use that. But then my friend suggested I try it. And then I saw the Laugh House. Like, I literally magically, the day after, and I might be romanticizing it because it was like 22 years ago now, but whatever it was, within days of my friend saying I should try it, I always thought it was like the next day, weirdly, because my friend asked me if I wanted to go to South Street with him to get sneakers. And South Street, is where the Laugh House was.
Oh yeah.
And there was a Foot Locker like down the block from it at the time, at least. And he went to the Foot Locker. He got some shoes. I think we were walking back, and where the car was just parked was down close to the 2nd and South. And I saw the sign there it was already the Laugh House at that point. It was David Brenner's Laugh House before that, apparently, and it was a Funny Bone before that.
Yeah, Funny Bone before that is what. Yep.
And then now it was like an urban quote unquote black comedy club. And I saw there's the sign up there. Always had it was there always, but it said like Thursday nights open mic night. And I went in and asked about it, and they were like, yeah, you could just come in and sign up. And then I went like the next week by myself and signed up. But what was so funny was they said you could just sign up, but I don't know if you remember, there would be like 40 comics.
Oh, yeah, sometimes
at least.
more.
Yeah, at least. And they really had like you're all getting on sort of thing. Like, everyone's going to get their time. And they would cut sometimes at the end if it was just dying out. But like, why it wouldn't really die out and they could put on 40 guys is because the crowd, what I thought open mic was when I got out of the Laugh House was like, oh, like, this sucks. This open mic night, it was packed to the gills. And this is back before the legendary Wid was hosting it. This is like Touré Gordon was hosting it.
Oh, I've had Touré on here. It was a fucking blast. I loved that episode.
Oh, dude, but Touré was the host of it, and it was called like Blazing Thursday, or it wasn't even called that yet. It was just the open mic night, but it was just not sponsored by, but it was promoted on Power 99 FM because D. Lee was the owner at the time. And fuck that guy. Terrible, terrible human being. Fucked me on money pretty hard. And then went into hiding because he owed a lot of people money. And then it reemerged as Look this up. Christian comedian D. Lee. And he's trying to make himself... dude, I've told the story of him fucking us over so many times that as soon as he popped back up, people started like just bombarding his Christian comedy page with... they were just hammering him with like awful shit. And then he's like, dude... He goes, it was years later, and he goes... Dude, he goes, listen, I'm sorry we had that thing. Send me your address and I'll send you money, whatever the money was. And I was like, it was so many years removed that I was like, dude, I'd rather just all my followers just fuck your page up. I was like, I'd rather just have your weird Christian bullshit thing fucking smashed apart. Yeah, that goes a bit. But he owned it and he was a morning DJ at Power 99. Like with Wendy Williams, I think, and all that shit. And he was
yeah.
And he was one of the owners of the Laugh House. So it was promoted heavily on Power 99. So it was 250 people strong, all pretty much black crowd for the most part. For your first open mic? Just the open mic, what that thing was in general. So I went up there, and again, probably gave me more confidence at the end of the day. But I went there the first week, and in the first week, I sat there and it was getting close to my name. 19.
Okay, and, so was I. I was 19 when I met you.
Yeah, and I went to Ray, came up to me, and he was like, you're next, big guy. And I was just like, nah, dude, no. He's like, you want to wait? And I was like, no, I mean, I'm not going to do it. Like, I panicked. And because in that room, very few people were doing bad because all the comics at that point, there was people that were doing like not that great, but it was never like someone falling apart. And most of the people knew how to work a black room with like big, it's like an open mic's you're not supposed to be using your closer. Does that make sense almost? When you think of open mic, it's like, I'm trying this out and here's a joke and all right, thank you guys. That's been my time. Like this one, there's like mic drop endings to these sets because like it was like Def Jam, dude. People were, when you killed, you murdered. Like it was like a complete, like it was the greatest feeling. But I just didn't want to not have that, and I started just second guessing. And I think I had jokes that were getting ready to happen about Maury Povich or Jerry Springer rather. And I had matured into Maury Povich. It made it into my half-hour special. That's one if you can go back. It's not that it's not a funny joke, even ever. You're just like, I wish I just didn't have I'd rather make fun of people who had Maury Povich jokes than like have one on record.
Was that your Comedy Central Presents?
Presents, yeah.
I remember I wanted to go, but I was visiting my cousin in California, and I remember calling you and remember you saying thanks for calling because I wished you well, but man, I would be there if I could. And you were like, oh man, thanks for calling. I remember that.
Yeah, dude. That was, and it's funny, it puts it in perspective now because you're 16 years in.
Yeah.
Yourself now. So 16 years in yourself, you see like 16 years ago, I was significantly less time than you are in it now. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you're asking the advice I had was like that root of the thing. I'm like, go to the Laugh House and then I don't know, hopefully Keith Robinson comes up and says, come to New York, like, and maybe you'll start.
Keith would pop in.
Yeah. Maybe you'll start with someone as bound for fame as Kevin Hart and you guys will hang together and that'll get people to look at you. And
okay. So you were 19 when you started. How old were you when I met you? So 2004. How old are you then? How many years were you in?
So, I mean, Jesus Christ, like 4, like a little over 4.
Okay. See, I would have never known that being in the audience, because me and my college roommate, Jeff, loved your fucking set and we were roaring. But being that I've never even done stand-up before, I had no concept of time.
Well, it's also funny. What was happening at that point when you met me too was, so 4 years in about was when like Keith Robinson found me about 2 years in and like didn't find me. We were like completely put together by like fate, and as lame as that sounds, it really like I was gonna quit because in 2 years I just had bad experiences in some of the clubs. When I would kill in the black clubs, and I was pandering a ton, so I wasn't feeling super satisfaction from like what I was saying, just the satisfaction that I was getting like big response from it. So everything from like I'm doing hacky stuff. I mean, there was great comics in the black circuit, hilarious people that are good. But I was doing like the hackiest of the hack stuff. You know what I mean?
Like what kind of stuff? Because I'm always intrigued by what we were doing in our. I mean, if I think of my first jokes, I cringe.
Yeah,
so what kind of
like,
hacky shit were you doing?
You know, like you can't have superheroes in the hood, y'all. Like, or you know when you're talking to a girl in a club. I don't even go to clubs, but I'm like, when you're talking to a girl in a club, right? And she acts all like this. Like I was just like, I never used, which I'm proud of. I never used the vernacular of like hip hop because that really wasn't me. I never talked like that. But I was a person very ingrained in like black culture, you know what I mean? Like I loved hip hop and everything, but I was just like it was definitely more rounded than like I didn't like fake an accent and talk a certain way. You know, I was never like yo, that's whack. Like that was just never me. I never called things fat when that was a thing. But and I also just noticed early a lot of white comics. I never did that
either there.
I noticed very much a lot of white comics going up and doing that, and it would drive me nuts. So I was trying to become the antithesis of that. However, just fashion-wise, and you know, I just knew what was going on. Like I knew all the references that I just definitely like. You know, I was like, oh, a black crowd's gonna laugh if I talk about like, man, being the only white kid in my school, it was like this, and everyone, you know, I like misdirection jokes like. Finally, I turned around to that bully and I said, listen, Principal son, you know, Johnson. And everyone's like, oh, shit, it was the principal. Like, you know, but you thought, so I knew they weren't like genius jokes, but I didn't think I could write anyway. Kurt always was so tough with that because like I was watching Kurt like not do as well as me a lot of times in the black clubs, which we did mostly, that like, but I just knew like it wasn't because his writing was so far beyond us just starting, you know.
Oh,
Kurt
really?
Metzger.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
you guys came up together, right? So okay, sorry. So that's the question. But who else was in your crew when you first started?
I started first of the three of us, and then Kurt started like it was like 3 months after me, maybe.
Okay.
And Kev was like maybe like 4 or 5 months after me. And I just very naturally friends with both of them. It was weird, very weird. Me and Kev didn't live near each other at all or anything. But like, I think we were just around the same age. I was 19, he was 18. So like being there in that thing, it was two guys would go like, you know, talk shit about Madden football at the comedy club. It's like, come over, me and my boys play. And then we play, and then we start playing actual basketball. And then like I said, my mom can't still process like Kev's fame. She knows he is. But like when he comes through, he goes, tell Kev I see he's playing Lincoln Financial Stadium. See if he wants to drop by the gym. I think he's busy. You know, but and Kurt, so we all started around that time. But the thing with I did 2 years of the like the black clubs pretty much, and like from the good to the bad. So again, because like, you know, I wouldn't pay, and I'd get nervous in certain situations when they were tough ones. Sometimes I couldn't like. I would do bad and I'd have people not pay me and I'd get like fucked over and like, you know, treated kind of shitty and stuff because you're the white guy going in there. So they fuck with you and it's intimidation stuff. And by the way, but sometimes the greatest experiences and great people, you know what I mean? On every single, so it's just different things, you know? Who were the promoters? Yeah, was it like a group of like hip hop dudes who like fucking hate it? Or was it like a guy who was like, you know, like a business guy who's trying to like hustle business through entertainment? Like it could be all different things.
Yeah, you know, for the first 2 years of my career, it was a little laugh house and mostly black rooms with other comics that I met. And granted, I'm 19, 20, 21 years old. I'm this scrawny, fucking skinny white dude, and I bombed my balls off some shows, but I walked away a king on other shows in some of those rooms.
Yeah. When you just connected, it was so great. And you felt good if you connect. But again, it wasn't really, my jokes really weren't, so much so that when me and Kurt started coming up and doing some of the mainstream rooms, like just like late nights or open mic stuff like that, like it was crazy to me to perform for a bunch of white people that wouldn't get my, you guys hear P. Diddy's new song? Like, P. Diddy's new song is crazy, and start telling you the breakdown of why the song's crazy. But like, so I was less prepared for that than Kurt was. But either way, in the black rooms, I was doing that for 2 years, and there's from the good and the bad, I was like, I think there's just a ceiling on this, and I don't know what the next level is. Like, I don't even have a clue. So
you don't have a clue when you go in.
I'm like, yeah, I didn't even know there was this level of comedy when I started. So the fact that I'm this level, I'm like, I don't know what the next thing is. Like, you know what I mean? I did weird things in my first like 2 years. Like, well, I did Comic View in 6 months because they were being boycotted by AFTRA, the union. They were being boycotted because they
Yeah.
didn't pay any money. It was a garbage deal. And they were being boycotted. But I didn't know anything about AFTRA or boycotting. I scabbed immediately. They offered me Comic View, and I was like, yes. And I went and did Comic View. So I achieved that in my head was like something. I don't know how long I thought the process was supposed to take, but I like cold called managers. You know what I mean? I just cold call them and just like,
Hey, I'm
you know,
Jay.
looking for a thing. And I'm like, should I send a tape or whatever? Or even the first time I even said, well, tape and a headshot. And I go, what is that? Like a tape of my comedy? All right. And then, yeah, it's like a headshot. Like, I mean, my literally headshot was like the first one was my girlfriend taking like a picture of me against a wall with like a disposable camera and then taking it to a disposable and then having to make like a large copy of just like a picture. I didn't know what any of those things were. So like, you know, there was no internet at that point, even that much. I mean, there was, but like, you know, you had to like print out MapQuest directions. That's the kind of internet there was, you know?
Oh yeah, I remember those from the early gigs too. Yes.
Yeah. So there was no like, you know, there was just like no way to find out how you were doing. There was no social media or anything. And I just felt I was going nowhere. So I was like, I'm going to quit. And I started taking training for Cutco knives to sell knives door to door. You know, it's a pyramid scheme.
Oh,
And I did the 2 of the 3 days of training. And then the third day of training, Michael Blackson, the African king of comedy.
yes.
He reached out to me and he was like, Jay, do you want to do this gig tonight? And I didn't even know what the gig was, but it was just like, I was so nervous. I could go on that training for 2 days and, you know, retiring from comedy that no one was aware that I was retired, you know, that no one knew any of the wiser for it. But I was like, yeah, I think I'm just done doing it. And then he just called and offered me a show. And I was like, I mean, yes, I'll do the show, whatever it is, I'm going to do it. And he goes, go to the airport. There's a ticket waiting for you as like United or whatever. And it's in Minneapolis. It's a dinner theater place. And we're doing a show. It's a black show, obviously, but we're performing for a bunch of the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Did this all happen that day?
That day, he called me. He goes, you have to go to the airport like now. Yeah. It was like, I mean, I was a replacement. I was clearly a replacement. I think the whole gig needed to be replaced because weirdly, so I go to the airport and I think I fight with my stepfather about like, I have to get to the airport. Like, can you drive me to the airport? He's like, no, but it's like, I can't take the car to the airport. You know, like I didn't know what to do. I don't even remember what I did ultimately to get there. I think maybe he dropped me off, but I'm waiting at the gate. And this is my first time, except for Comic View, flying for comedy, like a gig. You know, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And the guy walks up to me and he goes, hey, young fella, I'm Keith. He goes, and I was like, oh, he goes, I'm the other comic on the show. And he was headlining. I was opening for him.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, man, cool. Nice to meet you. And he's like, yeah, I've seen you at the Laugh House before. He goes, yeah, good stuff. And he was just like, let me show you the ropes, boy talk, like the whole the flight, like he had an empty seat next to him. He told me to come sit next to him, which was sweet as hell.
Yeah.
But it was also like a thing where my personality though is just like, then we got to talk the whole time. And I don't know if I'm going to want to talk to you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course. Cause I'm not that way too. You kind of want your space and.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're like, but the second I want to talk, I hope you're there. But like, he goes, come sit next to me. So I did. And just like, again, his talk, and he laughs when I tell him this so much. Cause it's like he'd be like, yeah, man. He goes, what comics do you like? I mean, I was saying something complimentary about like Jim Brewer on Premium Blend or something. And he just, every time he'd say something, when you know, when Italian people, when you say, you see that new Robert De Niro movie? He goes, oh yeah, Bobby did great work in that one. You know, like they know him like Bobby.
Personal connection. Yep.
Yeah, and Keith was doing a lot of that. Anyone whose name was Jim, it was Jim. You know, it's like, Jimmy Brewer stinks. I'm gonna tell him that, and something about knowing Colin Quinn and all these things. And I was like, whatever, man. I thought he was just full of shit. Then we go do this theater gig, and it's a black show, and Keith is a mainstream comic. Not that he can't kill in a black room. I'm just saying he does mainstream comedy. And
Yeah.
I have only done black room comedy. So I opened for Keith, and I mean, I am leveling. This is a good show. And I'm a little, I'm doing it for like 2 years. And like, I knew all my dumb, I think I did the thing where I take my pants off at the end of my set, and I'm wearing wacky underwear, and they're laughing at fat guy in his underwear. I mean, just bananas. And just like, you could do anything to this song. DJ, put that song on one more time. You could do, and Keith went on, and Keith did well, but like I had more of like the jumping up and slapping tables shit. And Keith, he comes over to me after the show, and he's still giving me a bunch of like, so you should come to New York, man, and see the clubs and blah. And it just give me advice. And I'm like, dude, I'm clearly better than you at this. But just funny how wrong that is. Like 20 cents, how dumb of a statement.
But when you're that new,
know.
you're so unaware.
Yeah, you're like, dude, and by the way, you're only as good as your last show at that age too. So you're like, you're gauging it. Each show means that much. Like
that's
when you eat
true.
When you eat shit, you're like, I suck until you fucking murder again. You know what I mean? Like,
and that sticks with you. When you're brand new and you have a shitty set, you need to get on stage again to redeem yourself, and only you have this fucking battle in your own head.
Right. But I mean, it's 16 years in yourself. It's like if you eat shit on a thing, like you'll be over that. You'll be talking about it, laughing about it in 15 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If it's still being brought up at all, if it's that, it's like, it's almost if you're going to bomb, it's better to have it be like, and then the producer was furious and something like they kicked out 3 people. Someone was waiting for me outside. You're like, really? Yeah, just fell apart, I guess. Like, but you're not like, I guess I'm going to go back to college tomorrow. You'll be fine. But at that time, everything was. So I thought that night that my shit didn't stink, and I'm taking breaks. I'm interrupting Keith, laying his wisdom on me, so I can go take pictures with like huge titted black women in front of like a Tupac airbrushed backdrop. It was like, so I went outside of that show weirdly, and I called Keith, I called Kev, and I was like, I told him I was doing this show, and he goes, how's the show? I'm like, oh man, I killed, and this was great, and I saw Bobby Jackson from the Timberwolves was there, and he's like, oh, that's cool. I go, this guy, and I'm calling Kev to like shit talk Keith. I'm like, yo, this dude Keith Robinson, man, I'm opening for him here. Should have been the other way around. I'm giving him like all this shit, and Kev goes, no, I talked to that guy too at the Laugh House. I goes, I think he's actually like legit. Like up in New York, he's like a New York established comic, and I was like mainstream comic, and I was like, really? I go, okay, if you say so, man. I'm like, and again, it wasn't that I saw him and I was like, this is a bad comic. I was just like, it just seemed like soft because he wasn't fucking a stool and like talking about whatever. So like he had no props and no music involved joke. So and Kev was just like, no, I think he's like a real deal. And then we just like agreed to go up with him to New York. Like the first time we went up there, he was able to get us. There used to be a book that one day a year, there was a lottery for the comic strip. This used to be a real thing before that club went to shit. It was a real like thing. And that was everyone came on one day, and you got over the next 6 months or so, you find out what Monday you're going to come and no audition for the club. And Keith was able to go in there and just say, hey, where's their 2 next blank spots in the book? And put these guys in. And he got us like auditions like there on the spot. And then I think I went on at New York Comedy Club. He got me like a little, check this guy out from the owner. And I think Kev did Gotham. Like we flipped a coin or something. And like he did Gotham. I did New York Comedy Club. He won. But it was like an interesting thing. So like, and then we just started going, and that was like when I started seeing like, oh, what the entry point is to mainstream comedy. Being on the outside brim of working mainstream comics is such an important thing to try to get to sort of quick. You can be on that brim for a long time, and it's fine. I was on that brim for a long, long time, but it's like to not even be like foot in that circle. I'm always like, I hate when I say like someone's name who I'm like, yeah, you guys know this guy, right? In the circle, and like established comics are like, nah, who the hell's that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, okay.
Like, oh no, like you should know that person. You're like, it's like, so But then you realize you're like, oh, some of these people aren't even standing on the outside of the fucking, the smear the queer. What do they call that game back in Philly? Kill the cow. But yeah, I'm saying, like, you're waiting to jump in. So like, it's cool. I know you got there. Just by the amount of time I heard your name just through the years you've been doing it, that I'm like, oh, you're like there. You're like on the rim of like the thing, you know what I mean? Which like, and by the way, when I say on the rim, it just means like you're actively working, like you're finding out what's that thing that might put you like, oh, am I becoming a millionaire off of broadcasting even? Or am I becoming off of, I did write a TV show and it got picked up, or, just something happens. So it's like, that's a great place to get to. But I mean, you can be on that brim like for a long time.
That's a long time.
That's a good place to be. But the entry point to that rim out there is, I didn't even know where it was. And then Keith just kind of opened it for us. And that was a cool thing, because then I was like, oh, I have to stand here and like go on at 3 a.m. when everyone's left. You know what I mean? And like,
and then, or just wait. 3 people.
And then, go do open mics that are actual like shithole open mics of 5 people in the audience, 4 comics and all those things. And you're like, oh, it's like a whole new thing. It's like, I was like, open mic rules, dude. There's a DJ and like, it was insane.
We get 1 free beer.
Yeah. But I mean, but also that open mic was so packed and awesome. Like the weekend act, like Talent or somebody like that would come in early to like a night early to like do the open mic, because it's like come in, murder and get some pussy, I guess, like it was crazy.
So you said the open mic was Thursday when you started.
It was Thursday, and I didn't.
Okay, it was Wednesday when I started.
Yeah. It did change to Wednesday, because then they started using Thursdays. Was the they started making that
showcase?
Oh, is that what it would be? I thought it was. Then it would the weekend would stretch then from like Thursday.
No, when I started, Wednesday was the open mic, and then Spank and Rich Salter had Laugh Away Thursdays. That was the name, Laugh Away Thursdays, which was a local showcase, and they put me on right away, man. They were very good to me, and I learned a lot, because that was some of my first not open mic sets. And then Friday and Saturday were the headlining shows, but they still had 5 shows because it was 2 Friday, 3 Saturday. 8, 10, and 12 on Saturday, and the midnight show was just fucking brutal.
What a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea on either direction to do a third show on a Saturday. Now, if you're selling out clubs, like, dude, this is so funny.
Then it's warranted.
Talking about so funny. You're talking about like humbling situations when you're like, I think things are going pretty great. 2 times over quarantine. Now, granted, it's over quarantine and whatever, and it was getting to that point before quarantine with like full capacities, but like during quarantine, like semi-capacity shows, I've been doing like, 4-show weekend or something. And then they'll go, dude, there's money to be made. Like, we got to add a show. Both times they tried to add it in the front of the night on Saturday. And both times the day of, I was starting to go like, man, I fucking don't want to do this. I don't want this to I hope it doesn't happen. And my wish was granted both times, but they called to tell you like, there was only 5 reservations, so we're not doing it. I'm like,
for the 4 p.m. show.
But I'm like, I couldn't think of somebody who I love seeing perform in whatever capacity, where I'm like, oh, they added a show at 4 p.m. I would just know. I go, that's the show nobody wants to necessarily
wants to go to.
Like you have to go to that one because there's no more available tickets. So I'd always rather have a midnight. Then I think that would always work better, but it'd be a rougher crowd, I guess. But like,
yeah, they'd be drunker, they'd be more tired. There's a whole thing involved. So I want to backtrack for just 1 second. So that very first set you did went well.
Yes, but it wasn't the first time I went. I bailed, and then I kept bailing. And even one of the weeks, I don't remember what one it was of the 4 that I went and like chickened out. It's probably the last one, but Touré again hosting the show like. Said I'm next, and again I went, dude, like no, I'm like no, I'm not going to do it again. And he goes, come on, man, and he went on stage and introduced me anyway, and I just sit at a table, dude, and do like the no, I'll later, like I'll do whatever it was. I just pushed hard.
The Queen's wave from the side.
Yeah, because he was already starting to like, he's a very friendly guy, Touré, so it was like very quickly he was like just a very magnetic kind of personality that I was excited to like hang around him a little bit. So before I even did comedy, the fact that he would talk to me as I'm a guy coming going, hey, I want to try this. I thought it was so cool. And he was starting to like recognize my face by the 4th week. So he just called my name anyway, but I didn't go on. And the 5th week was the first time I brought friends. I told friends to come because I was like, if you guys pay the $5 or whatever it is, I'll feel pressured to go on. I kept telling them not to come because I didn't want to do shitty in front of them. And now I was like, do shitty or not, dude. Like, you guys got to be there. So I just go, I'm doing it.
Pressure. It's
like,
pressure. It's game on.
I'm going to do it. And I went and did it. And it went, I'm sure, with awful jokes and everything was like, I'm a fat guy things. I did very well. It was all self-deprecation, I think. And then maybe a big Springer home run.
So you invite a handful of friends to see you, and you chickened out again?
No, I went on that time, and it went.
Oh,
good.
You did go on that time. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, no, it went good, but it was like with all shitty jokes. I mean, like I said, everything was about me being like fat or self-deprecating, just so they couldn't get like shitty with me. But it killed, and when I got off stage, Touré, like he hugged me and he said in my ear, he was like, "Yo, why'd you make him wait so long for that?" Which was such a cool thing to say,
dude.
Because it was such a great line. He's like, "Why'd you make him wait so long?" I always remember that. Why'd you make him wait so long for that? And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I dropped out of college like the next day, immediately. And then, by the way, when I went back, it might all be perspective too, which I think is pretty interesting because when I went back. When I made a drastic kind of decision to like, I'm leaving college. I was in community college. I'm like, I don't want to go anyway. But like, this is a good excuse to get out. And I withdrew. Like, but then I did realize I was like, man, I'm making a real choice here, though. Like, if I'm doing that, and I'm like, here, I'm going to do comedy now after one open mic. And so I went back. It never felt for like a couple months like the same. Like I did well sometimes and probably did bad sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
But for like 3 months, it never felt like I was like killing. It was like, they dealt with me for a while. But I don't know if it was even much better the first time. Other than that first time, if I don't get like people like not liking it, if I don't get people like just sitting there quietly or hating me, like you did great. Because you're like, oh, it worked.
Yeah.
Like I got up there, I did it. And also when I first started, the open mic was 3 minutes. The first time it was up from that, they go, there's not a lot of comics here, which was rare at the Laugh House. And they go, everybody gets like 7 minutes. And I was like, it's impossible.
Not happening. The same thing happened to me there one night. And Wid goes, can you do about 10? I was like, I will try. I will try.
I've done multiple specials now and I tour a bunch. And, you hit the same city. You try to have the same set every time, but it's so funny still when I go on the road and they say, they say, how long do you want to do? They always ask you that.
Yep.
When you're headlining the road, they go, how long you want to do? And I go, 45. And they never have a problem with that because the staff's also trying to get out of there at some point too. So they like that I say that. Now I'll tend to do an hour on some of those shows, but in my mind, I'm just like, it's still all these years, 22 years later, dude, I still have like like talking for a whole hour straight, like their whole entertainment for an hour is them watching me. That's like, I'm almost like on their behalf. I'm like, that's stupid, man. I'm boring after about a fucking half hour, aren't I?
Isn't that crazy? Because, okay, at this point, I have 2 albums and my third is on deck and it's some of like my favorite stuff personally. I have a new hour in the arsenal that I really like. But if I'm headlining a show, they're like, all right, 45 to 50. It's like, what the fuck are my jokes? I have 3 to 4 hours of shit in my back pocket, but I'm like, oh God, okay, what? Okay, an hour? Okay, okay.
When I hear those numbers, and then when I hear what other people do, like, I'm not even talking about the world record dumb shit because, like, they're not great comics or whatever, but I mean, like Chappelle. Remember Chappelle and like Dane Cook were having like
4 and 6 hour battles,
6 hour sets, and it's like, I'm like, that's stupid. Like, I could, like, if you're asking me if I could talk, entertaining at least, like mildly entertaining for 6 hours, like I could, but like, you just keep throwing topics. I mean, I'll keep talking about whatever, but I mean, it's stupid. It's really stupid. But when people would say like legitimate, like times, like their headline set, like Ralphie May, like when he headlined, he was like 2 hour set. I'm like, that's nuts, man. Like 2 hours is too long. If I love, I said my favorites to watch, like Attell, Metzger, Chappelle. But I mean, before an hour of any of those, I'm looking at my watch, not because it's not funny, but I'm just like, all right, something else now. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, the moment's done.
Like,
the night is done.
and just so it's like I always thought 45 minutes was like, and again, it's like want them leaving more. It's never a short show. A show at a comedy club is supposed to be an hour and a half, and I always break it up. I'm like, let the host do. Some clubs, man, are like, all right, the host does 4, brings up the feature. Host does 2, brings you up, and I'm like, what do you want him to get accomplished in 4 minutes, man?
That happened to me one time at a club. Yeah, they were like, do 5 to 7, and I was like, okay, all right, I guess I'll say hi and bring the feature up.
I really don't get that. I'm like, it should be at least 15, like 15, 25, and then I'll do like 45 to an hour.
That's the perfect format. In my mind, those numbers are absolutely perfect.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. This way, by the way, if it's like 25 for the middle, if they go like 5 over, it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's like nothing matters. Nothing's like taking too much time. So it's like, I always like to give people an opportunity like that if possible.
No, that's...
Man, my... Good.
Oh, no, I was going to say, so Keith was the first comic who was good to you, that really like showed you the ropes, gave you some advice and whatnot? Because you were that for me.
I mean, I'd always say that first person was actually Touré.
Oh,
Touré,
okay.
like really, like, I consider like Touré was like essentially like our friend, aside from just like the comic. I mean, I felt like I was like friends with him, and I am. You know what I mean? Like a long time now. So it's like I've known, and he really like said like whether advice was good ultimately or bad or whatever place he just been doing it longer and more like I thought he was very interesting about like just watching his confidence was very like inspiring, like how he would control the room, and when somebody was talking shit in the audience, like he would go at him and like destroy. He was like, he would kill at that stuff.
Oh,
I remember my favorite one ever that I remember and again, some of these things might be like used 1,000 times, and I don't care. Whatever it was, it made me laugh so hard that some guy was giving him shit, and he's like, "Shut up, you big head motherfucker!" And he goes, your head's so big, you're wearing a Timberland beanie, and all you can see is burr. And I was like, I just thought that was funny. I'm like, that's great, so great. That was the first person I got advice from. The best advice that we made for ourselves ever was me and Metzger used to when we realized the crowd at the black clubs, like if you could shut a person down that was shit talking you or being like shitty to you in the audience, if you could shut them down, one person, you were a fucking king. The audience tends to be like, oh shit, then they love you. Mm-hmm. So me and Kurt decided to go to the DMV, like down the Black Horse Pike, whatever DMV was down there. He lived in I forget where he lived in Jersey, but like we both lived in South Jersey, and there was a DMV near him. We would go there and sit on the bench outside because like there's no same kind of person ever that walks into the DMV. It's one of the most diverse, weird places ever. And we would sit there, and people would walk in, and we would just shit on them, like to each other. Yeah, you know what I mean. So that people would just walk up, and it'll be like, look at this. I remember Kurt said something about he ended up using on stage. It was like he eats like a kid with a rat tail who eats mayonnaise sandwiches or something like that. Whatever it was just funny. And like, and then we kind of got a little better at, and somebody in the audience was being something, you know what I mean? Like if I'm waiting for you to say something funny, I'm waiting for you to say something funny, motherfucker. You know what I mean? And then I basically got to a point, like if I could see you, I could probably win this thing and get the crowd on my side.
You have to wait for the right person to have the right line.
So we took that advice for ourselves. Like, I'm tired of people on stage like winning in the audience, like because that shirt you wearing make your titties look something, and you're like, and the audience is like, oh shit, they're laughing at you, and you're on stage under the lights. That's exactly
insane. What it was. You're bringing back so many memories of shit like that at the Laugh House, dude. Okay, do you remember? I think this may be Laugh House history. There was an all white show. It was me, you, and DeRosa.
Really?
Do you remember that? Okay.
I do. I think I do.
That was my first time hosting at the Laugh House. I had been asking them for weeks or months to host me, and I was ready. And like, I really was. I had 12 to 15. I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
So you're headlining, DeRose is featuring. I'm hanging at the bar. There's no host in sight. I don't know who's hosting, but Miss Mona was like, "Can you host tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm here, and I've been asking you for months." And this was Saturday because we did the 8 o'clock show and 10 o'clock show, you, Joe, and me. And then Naeem showed up, and then they just took me off the midnight show. They were like, "No, you're not doing that. Naeem's here." I'm like, "Okay." I understand now. I was strictly on the show by default.
Dude, it used to be curtains for me if somebody would just, and man, that's the worst, losing to an audience member when they're just killing you.
Yeah.
And you're just under the lights. It's such an awful feeling. But, it's great. What's so funny about that now is like, it's because I like, and by the way, I could still lose, I guess, to the audience. It could still certainly happen, but like, I'm confident in the way I do comedy enough now that like, if I hear the faintest like thing in the back, I'm so quick to like be like, what did you guys say? And I don't even go at it aggressive, like angrily, because you don't want to be angry at something, and they were just like, "Oh no, I was ordering my drink too loud. I'm sorry." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just like, I just want to know what it is, because I'm like, is it something we can do? Can we do a thing here? And like, it could be shitty, it could be great, but it's like I steer into that so much now. But when me and Kurt were learning that stuff, it was just simply so, like, a guy could be like, "Hey man, like nice." So what do you like, grilled rock sandwiches with those crunchy ass teeth? And then so the crowd would laugh at him, and you could be like, "All right, can I stop now? Can I go back to my jokes?" Okay. And now I'm just like, if someone's like, "You suck, man," and I'm like, list the reasons why. I'm like, "Oh, let's do it. Let's do this thing out." And like, I'd rather just sit there and it's more fun that way now. But like, when you're getting away from your jokes, when you're like in you're probably first like 7 to 10 years, even, you're like, "Oh man, it's going out of control."
This is all I have. I'm sticking to this. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There are no exceptions.
Well, it's also fun when you do it long enough too. If someone was even asking that now, like, how much time can you do? You're like, I don't know, 15 minutes, 7 hours. Like, I don't know. Like, I was like, it's like, because all you have now is you have the definite skill of like, I can talk to an audience. It is what it is. If they all walk out, if they're all think it's great, it's basically, you'll process it different. If it's great, it makes you feel great. If it's terrible, you might feel terrible. But the point is, you can still keep going. That was a big landmark for me, man. Was like, how long could I eat shit for? I could do great for as long as they'll put me up there for when it's going great. But how much can I be eating shit out of the gates and go? But I told him I would do 45 minutes, man. You know what I mean?
So that's a fun game you had for yourself?
No, it wasn't even a fun game at all. It was just like, it was more of a landmark for me to be able to go, "Oh, I don't know how long I could kill for, but like, I can bomb if you need me to for an hour." You know what I mean? I can like, my confidence will keep me there where it's like, this just never went good, but I'm not like down about it. It's fine. And then the other mile marker was like not being afraid of like a still, quiet crowd, like almost not be afraid of it, turning my thought around that to realize if it's still quiet, they are hooked in, paying attention.
They're paying attention. There's such a beauty in that silence too. Like, as important as the laughter is, when you have the whole room quiet, they're fucking listening.
Yeah, but in the beginning,
unless you're totally bombing,
like cricket. Yeah, but if you're totally bombing, it won't be dead silent. Do you know what I mean? But like early on, though, if you had a joke, like, it's more when you start noticing it when you're young. I think is you start like in your setup, you've picked some words that you thought would make it funnier than just saying. It's almost like it's the methodology of like Dane Cook, where you're going to tell the story about going to the kitchen to get something to drink in the middle of the night, and that's what. Then the setup's going to be, that's the setup. So you're choosing to go like, so I sashay to the my kitchenette,
yes,
to retrieve a fountain drink, or whatever, to retrieve a frosty beverage from my Seagram's Canada Dry, whatever, just wordier and like trying to make it funny, like
more descriptive, yeah, vivid.
Yeah, like the high, vivid description. Oh man, I'm such a pothead. I'm forgetting where I was going with this. Fuck. Come on, come back to me, baby. What was the last thing you remember, Pat?
The last thing I remember is we were talking about how long can you bomb for? And then from there, it went to, I
dead
could
silence.
bomb. Yeah,
The dead
silence. Okay.
Yeah. That's what it is. So I got it now. So when you're doing a setup and you pick those words, it usually gets like, the mild chuckles that lead you to the big punchline. But what's scary when it's dead crickets, sometimes the mild punch that you put in there because you think the word frosty beverage is funny, it just doesn't hit the crowd sometimes. But it's still dead silence, so they're still with you. But that's what would make me falter when I was younger, is that pin drop silence to me was like, I thought they were going to laugh.
They should have laughed there.
They should have laughed at kitchenette versus just saying like, I just talk this way I talk, and like, I know obviously what the punchlines are, but especially on a setup, I would never even bother myself with that. If they laughed more at that, or I just like, you have the confidence now to just stop and be like, did you guys? Like, was that too descriptive? Was it almost weird and uncomfortable? I would just ask them why they didn't laugh at that. I goes, I thought everyone used to laugh. I've said that before on things. I'm like, people used to laugh specifically. People used to laugh about my pleated pants down to my tapered leg, and then they just did, and people just don't anymore. And I go, am I saying it different? Like, I don't know. But I'm saying I wouldn't let that distract me. Other than I would just acknowledge it and be like, that's funny. That used to always make people laugh, that part. But I guess maybe it's back in fat. Who knows? That's a great moment to have in comedy. I don't think I could be shook anymore, barring any violence, I guess. Do you know what I mean? But like verbally, it's great, man. And it's but man, it's a million years. It takes a million years for it to happen in some weird way. When
did you start bringing a lot of crowd work in? Because I saw you a lot, probably my first 3 or 4 years. You gave me guest sets. I don't know if you remember this. You gave me guest sets at Rascals every time you came through, but you gave me guest sets your first Stress Factory headlining weekend too. I remember driving up to New Brunswick and I was like, holy fucking shit. And the place was packed. There was all the TVs and I met Vinnie Brand and I was like, this is...
Was that Lewis with me? Was Lewis with me maybe? Was
Dave that weekend.
Was Dave?
Dave. So you brought me up there. So, but I remember I saw you so much my first 2, 3, 4 years. I could probably still do your a half hour of your stuff from back then. When did you start bringing crowd work into it?
So it's funny, we were talking earlier about standing on that rim, while I was standing on the rim of trying to get something moving and going to move forward. I was working the clubs a ton and the cellar and everything. I was like a every night guy, like six to 7 nights a week. If I took one off as my daughter got a little older to do stuff with her on a Sunday, which I really didn't even need to do. I still could have went in late. How late my shows were always. It wouldn't have mattered. But 6, 7 days a week on the weekends, I'd gotten up to I was doing 7 to 8 spots a night.
Jesus
to make
Christ.
money. To make money because I was only on the road opening for. I said I found my people. I said people as far as who helped me, like Keith getting me into New York, me kind of finding my people, and I'd open for Bobby Kelly, I'd open for Patrice. They would take me out on the road, and then Attell years later after that, even for 8 years, kept me alive, just let me open for him.
Oh, see,
so those moments are great. But I was working the clubs in the city a ton, and the staffs there, they knew me. And what I always just wanted to get to, especially the Comedy Cellar, particularly, was that because that's where I was all the time, and I just loved that when Patrice went on, when Attell went on, and then obviously forget even just because I wasn't even talking about the Louis C.K.'s would come in and all that stuff when they were celebrities. I'm saying when Patrice would go on, but Patrice was just known from Opie and Anthony or whatever. These guys weren't famous.
Yeah.
Attell was pretty famous, but for stand up essentially. Even though it's Insomniac, it's his stand up basically. So he was but I loved that these guys who were on the lineups every night that the staff would stop they'd try to stop working so they can sit and watch them. And other comics would come in and sit down and try to watch them. And I loved that. I thought that was so cool. Man, other comics want to watch your set, and other people that I think are funny. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. People that you respect.
And he's coming down to watch Patrice, and he's coming down or Attell. And it's if there's a celebrity upstairs eating dinner, it's those are the people that when they go on, people come down for, And I thought that was so cool. And I also noticed conversely that being there so long, that the staff would be watching someone like a comic, no names, but who would do the same routines every night for the most part. Some of them right down to like props and stuff. They were working in the cellar and they hadn't gotten past that shit. Some of the people that were doing that stuff were, God damn it, I'm such a fucking idiot. Were get right back to it again, Pat. This is how pot works. It makes my stories long and shitty.
No. The stories are fantastic. It's exactly what I want. I asked you when you started to bring crowd work into.
Yes. So a comic, they would do the same set every night. They would. I'd watch the staff like mouth the words while rolling their eyes of someone else's comedy,
singing along.
And I was like, yeah. And I was like, but not like in a positive way. Like, I love this punchline. It was like a this again thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I really don't want that to be. So I really aspire to have what Patrice and Attell seem to have, or Geraldo and stuff. And not have happen what I saw that night from the staff. So that's when I started just going, I have most of my comedy at that point was like stories too. They were pretty long pieces. I would do, because that's how it filled time for me. I was always afraid of filling the time, so I had these long stories. And I thought, instead of them having to hear the same long story every night, maybe each night I'll pick like a story that I want to get to, but I'll lead the audience to getting to that subject. So if I'm going to tell a story about whatever it is, losing my virginity or something, I'll just start asking the crowd about their virginity stories, and then just kind of naturally commenting on them. No pressure, because I had long stories, but I'm like, man, let me just like yap to the audience for a while, and then just funny stuff would come, and the staff start to like that. And then for a couple years, and then it's just because I was there every night, I'm like, I'm also at the end of the night almost every night. I'm after Attell and everything, usually last person to go, 7 nights a week. So I was like, they've seen so much comedy like already, yeah. And most people are doing like, most people go up there and do their act, which is not wrong at all. But like, I was just like, let me just try to make you remember me at the end of the night, and like we'll just make it personal and like just talk to the people. And then on the road, it made it much easier to go and like not get sick of an hour of material, because I'm like, I'll do 20 minutes of material and 25 minutes of crowd work, and then if the crowd is getting stagnant, what I mean, if like the crowd's not really like super good answers or receptive or going with it enough, I'll just go back to like some bits maybe, and then I'll tell you the worst thing, which I fucking hate. Should never even say this recorded, because that's what people just do now. But when people just go, if crowd work's not going like great, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm going to go back to do a bit now, mm-hmm. and someone just goes, "Do your bits." You're like, there's no way, like no way now could I do. And it's such an indefensible argument there, because you can't go. It looks stupid if you go, "I am, sir," but you also don't want to be like a bitch about it and kind of go like, you don't want to go back at him like "fuck you," dude. But it does sort of get. But I'd rather almost have that "fuck you, dude" moment and not do it than possibly obey him.
Did storytelling always come naturally to you? Or is that a skill you? Because I remember, some of your earlier jokes and stuff, finish 'em gold farb, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And like when you're an early comic, you have jokes. So, did you get into storytelling earlier on in your career? Because for me, I'm 16 years in, and at like 13, 14 years mm-hmm. in is when I started to actually piece some shit together. And it was like, how have I not been doing this the whole time? It's way easier than I thought, but it took me that long to get there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I started doing it because I said it's funny. I'm almost realizing as I'm saying it here, it always like a fear of like time. It's also stamps in my head of people going like, Kev was doing colleges, and I was like, man, hey, same guy who books Kev, can I do colleges? Like we started together, like we're the same, like as far as like skill level and stuff. And it's like, do you have 45 minutes? I'm like, no, but neither does Kev. But like, Kev just said he did. You know what I mean? And like, so those timings. So I think what it was especially when I started doing mainstream rooms. Also, when I started doing those, I would always end my sets with stories. So I like that because if I was like featuring or something, when I was just doing the black room still or doing spots, I'd end with stories So I thought I had like a big finish to them. But why I would do it is because like once I didn't really know how to write jokes that weren't hacky, but I could like write jokes that were like I said in the black clubs I can like write jokes for the black clubs that I thought I just think like, I feel like I knew the subjects that would work, and I would write jokes kind of in those tent poles, you know. But when I got to the mainstream rooms, and I was like, I don't know what to write. You know what I mean? Like, anybody ever try to re-sand the floor or their hardwood floor? You know, like I don't know what the beginning of a joke is. That's why me and Kurt always got along so great, and always had such a fun, like even helping each other with jokes and stuff. Is because like he's like I'm a good finisher, but like Kurt would come to me and be like, "Hey, I got this funny joke I think about the black mamba snake and the weird way it attacks people." And then he tells me the thing, and like the idea is hilarious and great, and I'll give him like a different word or a funny line to say in it or something, you know?
Yeah.
But like I don't have the idea to go like you would never see me on stage going like, "Are you guys familiar with the black mamba snake?" like because I mean, maybe I would if it just came up organically because I watched this documentary and it came up organically. You know what I mean? And
yes.
It was related to something. But not like I'm writing a joke on a premise of saw this on TV the other day is like difficult for me. So I would just take goofy stories that happened to me in life and just try to like tell them and punch them up and like even embellish, I guess, sometime.
Yeah, I mean, we still all do
embellish is the wrong word though, because it's not it's like it's just
fabricate like a little.
Fun. But it's more just like making it like fun. Like I don't you know, like I tell the story I tell on stage now. I describe a girl, and it's like I'm describing her as like lip liner, no lipstick, tight ponytail with the puffy back, whatever. I'm just describing a whole thing. It's like I don't know, you know. It's like, but when I'm done describing it, you're almost like or something like that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I don't know if that's exactly what she was wearing, but it's such a funny outfit to describe, you know. Like so you embellish now, but I'm not changing like. And then the things that are changed when I say like I don't change facts. It's just like you should almost know I didn't like say that in the moment. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm not embellishing. Like that's. You know, I'm giving you the roundabout story and just making up dumb shit in between.
Did you have a joke? I saw you do it at the Cellar years ago. Did you say like it was either like titties that looked like a pillowcase full of D batteries,
yeah,
and something like a bag of mashed potatoes?
Oh no! It was a pillowcase. It was a story about her ass like a pillowcase full of batteries.
D batteries. I remember D-size batteries.
Watching my friend, I think, have sex with this girl, and when she clapped down on his little skinny legs, and it took form of his legs. There was like ass on either side of his legs and in between them. When she thundered down, I think that's what it was. I think it's saying her ass looked like a pillowcase full of D batteries.
I always remember that joke. So I was obsessed with Attell before I started doing stand up, right? And you did one of the coolest.
Really, like before I met you, you were like,
oh god, yeah, like, very into Insomniac. I loved Insomniac, but I loved the first 2 or 3 minutes when they showed him in the city's comedy club.
Yeah,
I would rewind and just watch him do that 3 minutes of stand up. So you and DeRosa opened for him when he came to the Tower. And I knew you. I'd seen you a handful of times. I think I met Joe once or twice, but didn't really know him. But I said hi to you after the show. And by the way, I was freaking out in the crowd because I knew you, and I'm here to see Dave. And I had no idea you were opening. And I'm like, that's my fucking buddy Jay opening for Dave.
Hell yeah.
I'm still 20. I can't even drink. I'm not even 21 yet. So I'm watching you and DeRosa open for Jay. And then after the show, you introduced me to Dave Attell as a comic. And I remember being like, holy fucking shit. Like, I had met Dave once before, maybe twice. And I met him, but you introduced me to him as a comic. And ever since then, he has remembered my name. And that is another thing that has stayed with me.
That was such a awesome time, that Tower Theater show.
That was still the Insomniac tour, I believe.
That was on the tour, right? So it was one of the legs of the tour, and Attell called me. It's so funny how much I've overstepped my bounds. Keith Robbins used to get mad at me about this. He was like, motherfucker, you get in first before you start dragging all your friends up with you. He's like, I'm not even in yet, and I'm trying to pull everybody up. And he used to give me that shit up. But Attell calls me, and he goes, hey, you want his...
he was with Sean Rouse.
Yeah.
And Sean Rouse had a bad rheumatoid
He was
arthritis.
sick. Yep.
And he was sick, so he had to bail on the East Coast leg of the tour. And then Attell calls me. I don't know how I did this and felt good about it, but it went great. He calls me, goes, "Hey, you want to do this East Coast leg with me?" And I went, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I go, "Who else is?" "Who else is on it?" He goes, "It'll just be me." He goes, "It'll just be me and you." I go, "Oh, there's no host." And he just his first. I wouldn't even if he just said no. I would have just said okay. And he's like, "No, why? Who do you have somebody in mind?" And I was like, "I mean, if you're asking, I mean, like." And DeRosa just moved in with me. I mean, just moved in with me, like a month before. And I was like, my buddy, my roommate, guy just moved in, is a hilarious fucking guy from Philly, man. And we were starting off in Philly. That was the first one of the night, and we jumped in the tour bus from there.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. And he goes, "Yeah, sure, bring him." He says, "Yeah, sure, bring him." Didn't know Joe at all, not one lick. And
no
Joe jumped on
shit.
that bus with us. Yeah.
To just bring along for these string of theater dates?
Yeah, or maybe he'd met him, like, like standing with me at the cellar a few times. I brought Joe around or something. I mean, he wasn't like, he didn't know him like that. And I mean, like, yeah. And then we went on tour with Dave Attell for like a week and a half or something.
Dude, I remember I was over the moon that night just because I knew you. Even before you introduced me to Attell, I was like, "That's my buddy Jay," and I was fucking riding that high all night. And then Dave destroyed, and then you introduced me, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And then Dave was so cool to me ever since. But
yeah, dude, he's great.
Dude, he is. And
we used to go down. I remember, like, the last time I say, like, laughing at stand-up comedy and my jaw hurting was coming up when we started going to the cellar. Just remember Keith would let us, like, he'd tell them to let me and Kurt or me and Kev or whatever go down and watch the show a little bit. And we would go down, and, like, I'd always go down to watch, like, Attell, because it was just, like, again, every night, completely different set. And and some jokes off the cuff, just joke ideas sometimes, but, like, whatever it was, you could still smoke inside at this point. And I remember he goes, he asked the guy in the front row for, like, he goes, "You got a light?" And he goes, the guy hands him one. He goes, "Look at us, we're like two teen runaways. My name's Sebastian, and my mom," and all I remember was "My name's Sebastian," and whatever ridiculous thing he said after that. But it just, like, was such, like, it was so calmly aggressive. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. That's a good thing for his comedy. It's very aggressive, but he so calmly does it.
I remember seeing him at the cellar night after night after night, just doing a different 20, and my fucking mind was blown. Yeah. Because, like, at the time, I was in between hosting and featuring. I have a half hour, 40 minutes, but depending what club I'm hosting, I'm featuring. And I didn't care. I was working a good amount. But I'm watching him do a different 20 night after night, and I'm like, "What the fuck is he doing?" And I'm being like, I can't do this. Like, he would just throw shit to the wind. I'm like, "I don't have the balls to do this. I don't have the stage to do this."
That's where he got me. We did an outside show, like, in the middle of quarantine. Me and him went down to DC together, and, like, like, he plays, like, the recorder and the recorder instrument, and just tells jokes in between it. Like, I write so hilariously ridiculous. And he just, but one of them, I said, "I wish I could write jokes, like, in this form." But he goes, "I stayed at the same hotel as Mike Pence. I know he was there because my Bible was hot." He just goes, I just love those, like, but I'm like, I wish my mind worked. Like, if it makes sense, it does work like that in broadcasting. You know what I mean? In broadcasting,
yeah.
I'm able to get. That's why I love having the both, because, like, it satiates kind of both things. You know what I mean? There has to be. I know through all the crowd work I do, I have to have cohesive, constructed bits to do. For specials and stuff ultimately, and I love having that. But, like, it doesn't put pressure on me to keep, like, writing, like, I don't have to just keep, like, every day, like, writing out, like, silly one thought jokes on current events. Like, broadcasting gets that out.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. But like you just said before I forget, like, I have looked at Dave so many times throughout my whole career and thought, I wish my mind worked like that too. Because it's also just, like, not only he is the king of misdirection, like, you don't know where the joke is going, but he's also, it's like machine gun rapid fire. Like, there's so many jokes where he does the joke and then a tag, and then another tag, and the third tag is the funniest part of the joke, and then there's a callback, which is also a tag to a previous thing, and I'm like, dude, the fucking dude's a beast.
Yeah, he's amazing at what he does. I mean, he's dedicated his entire life to it. His entire life is comedy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember, did you open for him at the Borgata too? Oh no, that was Sean
Probably.
Rouse, I think.
Oh yeah. No, the ones we did like something like outside DC, Pittsburgh. We went to. I know because the tour manager, great dude. His name was Dana, and he was a tour manager for Rusted Root, and he was tour managing for Dave.
Send me on my way. Send me on my way.
He was from Pittsburgh, and when we went to Pittsburgh, he was like, "I got to get you guys these Pamanti Brothers sandwiches. That's the big thing out there." And the sandwiches, it's a very steel workers sandwich. It's the fries are on the sandwich, the coleslaw, but the potato salad, whatever, it's all on the sandwich. So if you get like a roast beef and cheese sandwich, it's going to be roast beef, cheese, French fries, whatever. And he had them ordered before the show started, of a theater show, after a meet and greet and all that stuff. He goes, "All right, you guys ready to rip into those sandwiches?" And all those ingredients I just named, wrapped in foil, that ain't going to hold, bro. That's not going to taste good.
Ruined the roll or the bread.
It was just, all of it was just like a wet mess of, it's like coleslaw on half these sandwiches for an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was crazy. So I never tried that place ever again. I've been in Pittsburgh so many times, and I'm like, just thinking about it, I'm like, oh, those gross, wet, nasty sandwiches.
The coleslaw sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean a foil full of coleslaw? I'm okay, thank you.
Dude, you know what show I think of all the time? Now, like I said, you were good to me. You gave me guest sets all the time. We were at Rascals one weekend. It was me. Well, you were headlining. Vecchione was there. Metzger, Nate Bargatze. I did get sets on a couple of those shows, and then Rowdy Roddy Piper showed up one night because it was a Monster Mania convention. Do you remember
Monster
that?
Mania.
I remember.
Do, and that's when Kurt said,
"Yep."
He goes, "Rowdy Roddy Piper came here to tell jokes and chew bubble gum." And he's all out of jokes.
Yep. So I remember that because I did a guest set on one or two of the shows, and then I got bumped. And then I was like, well, I can't be mad because I got bumped for Rowdy Roddy Piper. And then I was like, what the fuck is happening? But I remember, like, I don't know, I was still new 2 or 3 years in, but I just remember just listening to you and Vecchione and Nate talk and Kurt and just taking it all in. And like, this is going to sound weird, but I remember at the time realizing how fucking cool and special that was for me because you always made me feel like part of the fucking crew from day one. From the instant I asked you, where do I fucking do this, to then like you included me.
Well, yeah, it was funny that my buddies I also never like, maybe it probably wasn't part of my personality. Like I said, I was never like a popular kid in school, but like, I just kind of ran with my crew of people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So like,
yeah, me too.
I was like, I looked at Patrice and those guys. Like Patrice was a dear friend by the time he passed away. Like, we were spend time at his house. You know what I mean? As a family, like me and my ex-wife and daughter used to go there for holidays and stuff. So like he was a friend, but like I also saw that his like day-to-day friendship people were like, his generation of people with Norton and, Keith and all those guys. Like, so I was like hanging with those guys a bunch, but I still looked at them as sort of like my elders and mentors and stuff,
Yes.
My friends, last but not least, my friends. But I was like, what about my guys that I'm going to like literally play Guitar Hero with and talk shit with and, when I ended up smoking weed, like, smoke weed with and just bullshit with on a daily basis and hang with. And it was just people who had just made me laugh and were funny, me and Lewis, Dave Smith, all just kind of like natural friendships that grew, It was, none of them were forced, but like because I was hanging out with those other guys also, they would always make it like, oh, Jay and his crew or Jay and his like, his fucking coattail guys and all that kind of shit. And it was like, they're just my friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I never thought it. So I tried to like, bring everybody along when I could. DeRosa I brought up, Vecchione I was like helpful with when he first came up, which is great, man. But I just had no shot in this business at all without help. Like every step of the way. And I'm not like I'm a complainer more than I'm like a fighter. Do you know what I mean? Like in the sense of like more than I go, it's like I'm going to show these fucking people. I have much more of like I guess I just suck. Yeah. I'm much more of the person just throw my arms up at it. So I've needed people to be like, dude, come. I mean, even like, Kev, for as out of touch as he and I are now, Keith, at one point, I was just like, Kev started getting stuff a little bit, like just in the clubs, not really getting like he was getting in the clubs, and I was still like not getting into a bunch of these clubs, and and they said it was like straight white guy, you're a dime a dozen, So like I was having a harder time. So there was some times where I just wouldn't go. We were driving from New York from Philly to New York every day. Like at one point, like 6-7 days a week, we were going up there.
That is a fucking
Keith,
hike.
Yeah, me, Keith, and Kev and Kurt sometimes. Kurt moved up very quickly. But then like in that trip up there, as much as me and Kev. Oh, I would stop going a bunch because, I was like, I don't want to go up there and just sit at the cellar waiting for Keith to host and talk to his friends till 3 a.m. Not that it's not fun. It's like, it's super fun to sit there and Patrice and them shit on us and make fun of us and whatever. But I'm like, I don't really have an open mic tonight. So just going there and sitting around waiting for it to be the hang just seemed boring sometimes. And I was like, I'm going to stay home and watch the Sixers game, or I'm going to go to the Sixers game instead. And Keith would get sick of that because he had a lot of people. Keith's got a history of people, and some that even that just like Keith's tried to bring a lot of people from Philly up. He was trying to be the guy to bring people out of Philly. And a lot of people were just like, got up here and were like, what is this mainstream shit? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I can't do my wacky characters up here, and they're not going to go when what about my whole set, the new P. Diddy song, they're like, what the fuck is this? So like, it would intimidate people to not keep coming up. And so he said he was going to kind of like leave it alone with me and not keep giving me shit to come up. And Kev really had to, like, he told me this several times, that Kev really had to be like, no, Jay's funny, man. Like, you need to keep like helping. I'll tell him to come up. And, he would like give me a little more like, I'd be like, Kev, I don't have really money to go up. And he's like, well, we'll pay for the gas if you drive, like, yeah, but I got to eat and stuff up there. Like, we're going to there till 3 a.m. And he was like, oh, you'll get food. It's like, whatever it was just like, we'll pay for all the tolls and then you just buy your food, like, it was just, he was encouraging when I was definitely going to be like, probably not on my way back. I mean, not back to school, but just kind of going like, when you see Kev starting to move along very quickly, even just getting in the clubs, you're like, I guess I don't have the thing. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I don't have whatever the thing it is. Instead of being a person who's like, I got to get better and show them. I was just like, no, I guess I blow.
Well, these are the stories I love hearing. And I don't know if you remember or not. I think it was very early in my career. You told me, I think it was at Rascals again, because that's where we came across paths the most. Because every time you were at Rascals, I would go hang. But you told me success happens at different rates and in different ways, and that's another thing I've always kept in my back pocket.
Sure.
And that comes across my mind all the time, because there are people that have started after me that are way more successful. But we all have our different avenues, and different things happen, and different situations happen. But yeah, success happens at different rates and in different ways. You told me that when I was brand new.
Well, you have to drink in sometimes. And I said, and I've had to do it many, many times. Like when I was, deep into my not deep into my 30s, but I guess like in my mid 30s, 34. And the amount of money that I had at 34, like how like upsetting it was. But I never really put thought in, like, as a young comic, to what my money was going to be like. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, yo, what the fuck? You're like, I'm failing. Like, I have every month I have to make the money I need. I wasn't like in crazy debt, but I'd like make the money I need to pay my bills, to get back down to like a couple $100, and then have to build that back up for the next month. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I was sitting on any kind of money. I didn't really have like a big thing coming or special or nothing like that. And like, just getting down. Those are times you really got to go, you know what? I've been on tour with Korn. I've been on tour with several bands that I fucking love, which is just an amazing opportunity. At that point, I was on a TV show for 2 seasons on IFC. It didn't really do much for me, but it was something that I was on, and it was fun to do. And I've been to South Africa for a month in like the amazing, insane hotel for this comedy festival. It's like all these things you have to just take stock and go. It's like, no, dude, I've done like pretty fucking unreal. I mean, for what my mom, I don't know if my mother's ever been out of the continental United States.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's been.
I've met your mom several times.
States. Yeah, but I don't know if she's even been like to 10 different states.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And it's like, I've seen the world. So that's great. Some of that shit. And then, then hopefully, like I said, however long it took me to make like any kind of money in this business, and I'm far from wealthy, but I mean, like, I'm fine. I'm like fine right now. And like, however long it took, I was like, it didn't take long enough that when it happened, I'm not like fucking finally. I'm like, oh, sweet. All right, well, good. Maybe my 40s, like maybe by my I'm 43. I'm like, by my mid 40s, man, maybe we could like get a fucking house that we're like, hell yeah, look at this place,
Yeah.
And like, maybe, well, you got to see if the world comes back here, like on fire. But like, if that happens, like I'm in a position where that might be the case. Maybe not, but like, I don't feel like it's impossible. And I don't feel like if it's not then, it'll be the year after. You know what I mean? Like the pace is good now, but it took a while to get that like next thing going for sure. And it was amazing things, dude. Ari Shaffir put me back on the map with Comedy Central by fighting with them. They were not interested in me. And then they came around and offered me the special after that. Schumer putting me on that show 3 times, writing parts on that for me with Kurt. Kurt was working for it at that time.
Yep.
And Louie put me in 3 episodes, like sight unseen, just like do these parts. Fucking amazing. Getting to be like Attell's guy on the road for like many years. Like those, and I said Attell being a guy that I was like, we go down to make our cheeks hurt laughing. And now it's the guy like every month I was getting like, all right, this week we're going to Virginia Beach and DC and I'm like, yes.
Dude.
And like 9-hour drives with him to Virginia Beach that it's like I always remember that shit. That's great.
That's the shit I love. Like that is these are the I love this. So this podcast, because we can't have green room chat because we're not really in comedy clubs right now per se. So This is the exact reason why I started this podcast. And these are the stories I love hearing. Like I want to talk to comics about the early days, bullshit about stand up. But then hear stories of what you just told me. 9 hours in a car with Attell. That's shit I want to hear about. Like going to New York 6-7 days a week with Kev. That's the shit I want to hear about. Like
me and Attell just never. Again, one of my favorite memories of Attell always is just I love when he is like Attell with you. He's a guy, it's like his personality is his personality, and his personality is his comedy in many ways. But like when he just does something that's such like a stagey thing in front of you, and it was us trying. I never really know what music to put on that he's gonna like or not like. He's fine with rock for the most part, and I remember it was Godsmack came on, and do you know their music at all?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So the song "I'm doing the best I ever did. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm doing the best."
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Whatever. When that part of the song came on. Just Attell going along with it, it just goes, he goes, I'm doing a very and it's just like me and Dave Smith were in the car also, and like I remember like as soon as like Attell went to his hotel room and me and Dave split off, that was like the first thing we talked about. I go, dude, how fucking great doing that, it's like a stage thing that you're like, oh, we're getting like a moment of that. It's like a little private show, you feel like. And he doesn't even know like how much we cherish that thing. I'm like, oh, dude, that was so awesome. You did the thing. You did the voice thing.
That's
in the car with us.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. That's the thing I want to say too. You don't realize how much you cherish that. I've had that with Attell, and I definitely had that with you. So,
well, dude, like fans, even which I think is sweet, is like I'll meet a fan like Legion of Skanks on the road, and then it's something like it's like tell they'll be like, oh, and tell they love Lewis, but their thing is like tell Lewis to go fuck himself, whatever. And then I'll be like, it's like fuck you, doggy. I'll do like a Lewis impression, and then they're so excited, they're like he did the thing we watch on the thing. It's awesome.
I had Chad Daniels on a few months ago, and he was talking about like that fanboy moment, and people will like apologize to him after a show, be like, "I'm sorry, I'm being a fanboy, I'm being a fangirl." He's like, "Do it, have that moment."
Yeah.
Like it's okay to have that moment. Like if you are a fan of mine and I'm here, I'm giving you my time for a second. Have that moment.
Oh,
like,
dude, I'm
and
blown away.
It's so freeing.
I'm blown away by how many. I said to Christine the other day, my girlfriend. I was like, "Do you know how many times a grown man, maybe larger than me and far more masculine than me, has been? I feel his hand shaking on my back, like while we're taking a picture, and like he's so excited. But I think that's fucking amazing because I'm like,
it is.
I'm like, that's so cool that it means that much to you. That whatever we do that like entertains you means that much. Somebody's great. What I don't like, and I say it all the time, it doesn't change ever. Even though I say this so much, I don't mind a guy or a girl either one, a guy going like, dude, I'm fanboying out right now. I'm almost like, yeah, dude, don't shit on yourself for that. You're not being a fanboy. I'm like, hey, you're hanging out. Say hi. Let's smoke a butt or it's a joint or something, you know? What I hate is when the woman comes up and goes, this is my boyfriend. He wants to suck your dick, but he's too much of a homo to ask you for a picture. So, and you're like, lady, you're making us both so uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, you have
like,
no
you're making
idea.
me and him uncomfortable. Like, you don't have to keep saying to this guy, yeah, this guy would suck your dick if I wasn't here. Like, no, you wouldn't, man. He just thinks I'm funny, lady. Chill out.
Yeah, let him have a second. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, why does it have to be he wants to fuck me? Like, I don't think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think he just thinks I'm funny.
I think deep down in his car when he's driving home from work, listening to your podcast or your comedy or whatever, it's like, I want to fuck this guy. It's like, no, I really enjoy this, actually.
Yeah. He's like, God, this guy is fuckably funny.
All right, dude. Thank you so much for doing this, man. This is the exact conversation
Thanks
I love
for having
having.
me, dude.
Seriously, I'm not going to suck your dick here. That's a great segue. But dude, you've done so much for me, and you are the person where I asked where to go, who to talk to. You told me. I started a week later, and you've been so good to me ever since. Here we are,
yeah,
and I
dude.
really hope we can get to do a show together in 2021 somewhere.
Absolutely. I'll say, dude, man, I'm fucking proud of you, dude. It's so. I said to Christine tonight when I said, I go, Pat, I go, yes. I told him like kind of where to go when I first met him at Temple University, and I go and like that was, and I said, I was like. I said at least 15 fucking years ago, dude. That's why I go. Pat's like a veteran of comedy now.
Thank you, man.
You're a veteran. Isn't that crazy? You are. You're a veteran of comedy. That dates me, but I'm very proud of you, dude, for sure.
Well,
listen,
thanks, man.
You got through the Vicky and Vinny show audience. You're fine,
dude. Thank you, man. Seriously, when people always ask me like how I got started, I mention you, and it really does come back to that, man. Like, you gave me guest sets, like, pretty much sight unseen. And every time you came through Rascals, I would pop through. And that's how I met, how I got to know Vecchione, DeRosa, and all these other guys. But, man, like, because I talk about the early days a lot on this podcast, I always mention a lot of stuff that you never forget. And, man, you did so much for me in my early days that you'd never forget that stuff.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I love you, buddy. I was glad to do it.
I love you too, man. We'll definitely be in touch soon, and hopefully we can really. We haven't worked together in a couple years, so let's try to make that happen this year somehow.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do some Stress Factory shit with that outdoor arena.
Yeah, outdoor. Yeah, I'm in.
Hell yeah, dude. For sure, man. Absolutely. My word.
Dude, Jay Oakerson, thank you so much, dude. Thank you.